Hey guys, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the South Florida Industrial Real Estate Podcast. My name is LarryG. I am accompanied by my co-hosts, Michael Oretsky and Tom O'Loughlin, two legendary individuals. We're excited to be here and to talk about the Q4 numbers, which are finally in. Took a minute, but we've got them and we want to chat about them. So guys, why don't you tell me a little bit about Q4 and what went down and maybe touch on absorption and vacancy.
So to kick off, we'll start with vacancy. Ended the year in Broward County, we had about 5.5% vacancy rate, which crept up a little bit. And in Miami-Dade, another 100 basis points at about 6.5%. So, I mean, that was spurred, I think, from the deliveries that we saw last year. We had a ton of reshuffling of the deck in terms of, tenants consolidating into one location, maybe getting a little bit of net absorption out of that. Some downsides, but we just didn't see a ton of new to market tenants, which we need, obviously. I think that was spurred from not seeing a ton of those new to market tenants that we're used to, especially in Broward County. Obviously, as we get into 2026, the construction pipeline is not what it was. We're not gonna see close to as much on the delivery front. And I think what we're seeing on the ground here to start Q1, I think we're gonna have a good year and eat into that vacancy here a little bit.
Awesome, that'd be nice to see. Tom, what about you?
Absorption across Broward and Dade County was pretty good last year. I mean, it wasn't, great, but, according to the numbers, if you average all the brokerage shops in, all the research department, Dade County was about somewhere between 1.5 to 2 million square feet of positive absorption. Broward was, call it 300,000 maybe 100,000 to 300,000. I think a lot of it was probably musical chairs. And then in some of the numbers, especially with Mike pointing out on vacancy, I think we'll probably start seeing these numbers, probably the highest they'll be, and they'll start cleaning up. There's a lot of activity late in the fourth quarter, and I think there's probably a lot of deals that were signed, but you know how these research departments, they don't really calculate the occupancy
it's not until baked in the cake yet.
Yeah, they got to wait 6 months till the tenants move in. So I think throughout 26, we should start seeing that clean up. And to Mike's point about constructions of, starts have slowed down. So, I think all in all, I think at the beginning of the year, people were impressed with how it ended and happy with the results. And I think a lot of people are saying, hey, if we could have another positive year across South Florida, the COVID overhang will kind of diminish and we'll be off running again.
Yeah, if it's any indication of how busy we were at the end of Q4, it was insane. It almost never stopped until we hit Christmas. If anybody else was like that, then the numbers are going to be fantastic nationally. And I agree with you. There was a lot of deals done of all sizes, especially a lot of big ones that are not baked into the cake yet. So take those numbers with a grain of salt. We know what the real numbers are, and they're better than that. And just for historical context, at least in Broward, you said we had around 300,000 to 400,000 of positive absorption. I've heard you say this many times before. On average, we absorb how many square feet a year, generally going back 5, 6, 7 years?
I mean, usually, historically, it's, somewhere between, take COVID out of the picture, but it's usually between, 800,000 to 1.1 million of positive absorption. Dade's double that, just because it's double the market. But usually across South Florida, that's been the average. And, so
we were less than half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So it was slow.
Yeah. So there's definitely
those numbers aren't baked in. So we'll see as we get through 26, we'll see how the numbers actually shake out. We think they'll actually be significantly bigger. So.
And on that point though, I think if you talk to anyone in this industry last year, it was a challenging year day to day.
Yeah.
But if you look at the numbers for where they're at right now, and as Tom said, we kind of feel like we bottomed out here a little bit, at least what we're seeing on the ground, which we'll get into.
Totally.
I mean, if that's where we're settling out, I think we should all, be pretty happy with where the numbers are and where we ended up here to end last year.
Yeah, if we've seen the worst of it, then I'm okay with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
let's get back to growth.
There's 20 or 30 markets across the country that would trade blindly for our stats. And if this is the worst we're going to see, keeping in mind, Mike's brought it up on other editions of the podcast that, from the tenant perspective, we still grew rents last year.
Rents are up.
On a gross basis, they're still up.
Yeah.
A little bit, it was probably more water in the operating expense bucket last year than it was in the base rental bucket. But overall, the tenants are saying, hey, the buckets are more full than they were a year, 2 years ago. So rents are still growing. And I think especially in Broward, I think Dade might probably be 6-12 months behind Broward. As this vacancy finalizes or reaches its capacity, I think we'll start seeing things clean up. And I think you'll see landlords start turning around on rent growth and concessions and stuff like that. I think we'll start cleaning up.
Yeah, we got so used to like 2 and 3% vacancy, like to hear 5 and 6, we're like, oh my God. But historically, like it's not even touching anywhere near the GFC. So we're in a really good spot. We're poised for growth, and we're excited about 2026, and we have a lot in the hopper. So that's very, very exciting. Let's switch gears a little bit, and let's chat about what we're seeing so far. And what do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, Tom hit on it. Q4, and you hit on it as well. Q4, we had a pretty mad dash to the end of the year, which we're used to seeing there, but I mean, last year it felt like there was so much pent up demand through Q1 and Q2 that the deals that were kind of sitting and took a while to come to fruition actually made it across the finish line. And I mean, the inquiry level just shot through the roof right after, I would say, Thanksgiving, that month in between the holiday. We were barely in the office from doing showings and different market activities. So we've seen that continue. We've seen a huge influx from, should I stop?
Just keep going.
A huge influx from out-of-state tenants and out-of-state brokers who are calling for new requirements. So it feels like corporate America, at least for the South Florida market, turned back on, which, that was our mid-bay that we were missing in Broward County, our 30 to 70,000 square foot tenant. And I mean, here to start the year in January, I mean, countless big tenants are in the market for us. Big corporate America is back. It seems that the decision making is getting quicker. They're touring, putting RFPs out. I mean, we're pricing out different TIs, pricing out builds. And I mean, to start the year, I don't think we could really ask for more.
That's awesome. Tom, what about you? What are you seeing in the early innings of 25?
To build on what Mike said, I think, one of the important aspects of the activity we're seeing is that it's a healthy mix of tenancy. Like it's all types of different industries. It's not just housing. It's not just auto parts. It's not just food. It seems to be a little bit of everything: niche manufacturing, pharmaceutical, nutraceutical, electronics, 3PLs. We're kind of getting everybody back in here. And all these different users, it's kind of going back to basics across Miami, Broward, and Dade County. It's going back to the traditional size ranges, going back to the traditional users. It's not just dominated by e-commerce. And I'm hearing from landlords across the board, like we're going back to the basics, like 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s in Broward, a little bit bigger in Dade County because they have that international 3PL, cargo business. They're probably more like 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, but it seems healthy across the board.
Yeah, the diversified tenant base is a really good point. We've seen every category of business out there, from the t-shirt screen printing guys to the aviation guys, nutraceutical, pharmaceutical, beverage, food, like you name it, 3PLs, just wholesalers, like across the spectrum, everyone is out there, which it's nice that South Florida is such a diversified tenant base now, and it's not so reliant on housing and home building.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
that's great. So in terms of sales, it's been interesting. You can't find anything. And if you do find it, it's very, very expensive, even if it's not perfect, shall we say. So buildings that need a lot of work are like getting 250 and 3 handles on them. So we're talking about 250, $300 a foot plus for buildings that need a lot of CapEx for end users. And that kind of pricing is new. That has not happened before down here. I mean, it sounds like I'm talking about like California or something like that. So if you could find a building, good for you. You're gonna have to pay through the nose for it, or you can end up going and leasing something. The problem that I'm seeing, the people that I'm seeing that are the most aggressive on the user side are the ones that have to invest a lot in the building. So any kind of manufacturing operation, any kind of food related operation, anyone who needs to install any kind of equipment in the warehouse, like cranes or heavy power, they're all very, very motivated to buy, because to put $500,000, $1 million, $2 million into a 30, 40,000 foot building, sign a 5-year lease doesn't really make any sense. So they're all looking to buy and there's nothing to buy. So the pricing is through the roof. Great for people who own buildings and are looking for an exit. Not so great for end user buyers.
No, I mean, and that's a great point. I mean, we're seeing obviously when we sit today, there's a lot of institutional level product on the market as well. Right now, I mean, there's 5 portfolios in the market in Broward County alone. So, I mean, it's really going to reset the landscape here. We're going to have a lot of new owners in. It doesn't seem that there's any shortage of capital who's still trying to come into South Florida. And I mean, I think we're teeing up here to have a strong year for 26.
Yeah, Tom, without getting into any specifics, like the institutional capital markets down here is on fire. It seems like everything is selling, which is going to reset rents, which is going to reset operating expenses. Everything is poised to go up after these trades, not down. Like, what are your thoughts on it?
I think a lot of people are, potentially taking chips off the table. They got good run-ups post-COVID. They've, the assets have appreciated. They got good stable tenancy in there. There's still a little bit of like mark to market left. Like there's still some meat on the bone for the next guy. Yep. And to your point earlier, I think people look holistically across the country at investment opportunities, and we've still got a lot of drivers down here that others don't. I think also to my comment earlier, people said, well, if that's as bad as it's going to get down there, that's not pretty, that's not terrible. Yeah, I'll take it.
Not bad.
Right.
If that's their dip, it's pretty shallow.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of institutional capital is like, hey, all those drivers, that demand, and especially us leasing guys on the ground, if we're saying, hey, we're seeing an uptick in LOIs, tours, activity, some of the traditional static vacancies getting leased up, they're like, yeah, I'm back in, I'm ready to go. And I think a lot of people have asked me like, why did it all come at once? I don't think there's a rhyme or reason. I think some of it was fund recycling, fund ending, timelines, redemptions, different things. But I can tell you, in working in partnership with the institutional sales team, there is a lot of interest and activity on all the listings across South Florida. There seems to be, and to Mike's point, it's traditional institutions, it's traditional REITs, it's family offices, it's high net worth individuals. There seems to be all types of different buyers that are looking to place capital. And I think that'll continue throughout the year.
That's really exciting. Yeah. So even with the slight dip in rents that we've seen and the challenging last 2 years, as a result of interest rates rising mostly, the capital still is flooding to South Florida globally. Global capital is flooding to South Florida. It all wants to be here, and the allocations are weighted in our favor in terms of like capital deployment for South Florida. So we're encouraged by that. We're excited about that. If the institutions and the smartest money in the world want to be down here, there's a reason for it. And we're excited to try and execute on their behalf all of the business plans that come with all these sales. So thank you to everyone out there for watching. We appreciate you tuning in. If you wouldn't mind liking, subscribing, and commenting below, Mike would really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And thanks for joining us. Until next time.
Thank you.